I'm live. Okay. That camera is working. Hey, I know David's here, Nicole's here. Mary's here. Hi, Mary. Just pop something in the chat if you can see and hear me okay. I'm hoping everything's fine. Of course, we tested it, but you never know. Good sound, says Anna. Great, that's good. Just going to check the canvas cam. Take off me cam, canvas cam. There's a bit of a lag for me, so I think that's working okay. Fabulous. Let's put it just back to me for a minute. Cool. Right. So I think we should let's just crack on. Thanks, Nicole. Good to see everyone. David's here. Anna's here. Fabulous. Right. I'm just going to fiddle with the laptop for a minute, just so I can get a monitor. Okay, right. Well, let's get going. We're going to paint this lovely bird today, and please put anything in the chat that you want to ask or say. So it's nice to just see a few messages coming through, because it's a bit like filming a hostage video from this end. I'm just going to pop out a bit more paint. Now, in the materials list, I listed all the paints we were going to use, but I think this is, let's take that down for a minute. There aren't very many colours in here. And so we're going to need some burnt sienna. We're going to need some ultramarine. I'm going to use cerulean. You don't have to use cerulean, a slightly greenish blue. But I like cerulean with watercolor because it granulates so well. So I'm just going to pop out a bit of cerulean, but ultramarine would be fine. It will just have a slightly different color cast, and cobalt would be fine too. All right. Right, I've probably got enough of everything else. Okay. There's Marsha. Hey, Marsha. Oh, no, Marsha, the chat is working for you because I can see it. So, or maybe you can't see us, but we can see you. Right. Oh, I've got paint tubes on the floor. That will stay there for now. Right. I'll just shut this up again. And I'll take me off. And I will put canvas cam up. And we'll just have a quick chat about what we're going to do. And we need to have a plan for this. So I'll take off me cam. Onto canvas cam. There we go. Great. Okay, good stuff. Stream looks good. Sound is good. All we have to do now is a good painting, which is should be, well, no, it's the hardest bit, I think. Right, so this bird. If you're painting along, I hope you've done the drawing. The drawing is really important for this. This is a photo by Dave Nightingale, who used to post his photos in a Facebook group, Library of Artists Reference Photos, and he provides them copyright free for painting. And his photos are absolutely spectacular. This is gorgeous. And I think it's almost too good to paint in a way, but I thought the shapes were just so wonderful and the pose was so wonderful that it would be nice to have a go at it. And I have painted this before. I only have a printout of it. Actually, I can put the image up. Let me put the image up for you. I think it's this one. All right. Whoops. I'm hoping that will show. No, I'm moving all different things. Well, I'll leave him there. Now, it's obviously not quite like photo. We're not going to put it in a background. I'm going to leave it white, and I think we're going to leave it quite pale. And when I painted this originally, this wasn't actually going to be the finished painting. I was going to take it a lot further, especially with the wings, because these wings, it's a black winged kite, and in my first version the wings aren't black. But I liked it so much, I just left it halfway through because I like the intensity of the eyes, the way the eyes are in focus and everything else is nice and fluid. And I especially like these little fluffy feathers around the belly area. So we're certainly going to keep the fluffy feathers. I think I might try and make it actually a black winged bird because it is a black winged kite. But we'll see how that goes. Right, so my drawing, I think my eyes might be slightly too low down, and he's looking a little startled. I'll just try and pop that up and take that image off. Take the image off. Image 2. There you go. Right. So let's have a look at the photo and make a plan. And if you notice in the drawing, I've left out the belly area completely. I've drawn in the head, lightly drawn in the wings, and the feet and the branch it's sitting on, because we're going to be doing this with very loose brushwork. Now, let's have a look at the light. The light is coming from over here. So this is the light side of our bird. This is the shadow side of our bird. And the light side of our bird is pretty light. In here, it's probably a value 8 or 9. Get my value scale. Yeah, it's at 8.5 in there. And that's slightly darker, but I don't think it's that much darker. Though it's a different colour. In here in the photo, it's really quite dark. Now, I don't think I'm going to take it quite as dark as that. If I look on here, yeah, I mean, that's going to put my head in the way. Yeah, that's around a 2 down there, but I think that's going to look too stark for us if we put in those shadows too heavily. So, but we do need a value change from the light side to the dark side. And the tail is kind of dark. There's this shadow coming across here, which I didn't put in the original. But I think, again, let's try putting that shadow across the body in. Right, okay, paints and brushes and stuff. This is Fabriano Artistico, and I've taped it up so it fits in a standard 11 by 14 mat. And annoyingly, with Fabriano Artistico, it's the paper sizes are slightly too long, but it does give you a nice strip across the bottom to test out some colours. So, brushes. I've got 4 brushes out. You don't need 4 brushes. We're going to need a fairly big brush for the wings and larger areas. I've started using this silver black velvet brush. I think it's just synthetic, but it holds a lot of water and it's got good flexibility, but it's not overly floppy. But a quill or a larger round would do for that. I've got my trusty sables out. These are a Skoda Reserva Kalinsky sables. I keep trying to find synthetics that behave the same way, but they don't. So I keep going back to my sables. I think this is a 12 and this is a 10, might be an 8. But the Skoda brushes tend to be smaller, I think, than other brands. And for detail work, you can use if you've got a very pointy round, that would work. I like the Skoda. This is a pure synthetic Skoda Perla. It's quite a big one, but it's got very stiff bristles. Doesn't hold a lot of water because it's a synthetic, and it points really well. This is getting on a bit now, but it still points really well. So I'm gonna be using that for the eyes and the beak area. Right, just gonna quickly check. Mary asks, is it hot press? No, this is cold press. She says, hopefully. Actually, I'm going to check. Yes, it's cold press. Yes, you had me worried there for a minute. Oh no, I don't want to be doing this on hot press. Yeah, I like Fabriano Artistico. I did do recently a painting on arches, and I've forgotten how much I like arches. It does hold the water well, and you can work it for quite a long time. Fabriano, I find, you can't work into it as long, but we shouldn't be working too long for this. Oh, there's another question. Michelle, how do you work out value paint will be? How do you work out what value your paint will be after it dries? You assume it's going to dry a value lighter than it is when it goes down. The more water that's in there, it's not quite that simple. It's the more water that is in your paint, the lighter it's going to dry when it dries. So if you put dark paint down, it's generally got less water in, and so it won't change value quite as much. If it's very, very light, it will change a lot more. I kind of get around that by not putting down too many values to start with. So we're going to start with our light side here, and it's going to be a fairly light, probably an 8. And I often do a little swatch just to test what the paint will look like. Probably I should wait until it dries completely so I know exactly what value it is. In practice, I don't. I cheat and guess. And then the next value down will be our shadow side, which is going to be probably, 2 or 3 values darker. So as long as you have those 2 values separated, a small difference in the drying shift shouldn't matter. But you're right, it's not a trivial thing, and it's one of those things about watercolor that you have to take into account. But I'm not particularly scientific about it. Okay, so let's put some paint down. Then let's start with putting some light color on these wings. Now we want to leave some shape on these wings. Did that help, Anna? I'm not sure that helped. It's a very good question, and most people say it dries a bit lighter. which isn't particularly helpful, but yeah, I'm going to be really annoying and say it's experience. Oh, I hate it when people say that. But don't put your values too close together, and then if your drying shift is slightly different to what you predict, it shouldn't matter too much. Right, okay, we've got it. We've put off this moment long enough, I think. So let's mix up. It's going to be, I think I'm going to make this a blue-grey. We've got this lovely sort of brownish orange plumage on the body, and we don't want, I think I want to push this grey slightly blue. So I'm going to mix up a grey, a damp brush. I'm using my biggest brush. Dip the brush in the paint, and I don't put any extra water in quite yet. I'm going to add in just a little bit of burnt sienna because I want to keep this fairly blue. It has to be grey, but it's a blue-grey. I'm going to need a bit more paint than that, I think. And right, now that's going to be dark, and I can tell that, well, darkish. It's going to be darker than I want because of the consistency of the paint. So if I put that down, yeah, that's going to be too dark for our first wash. You can't see that. Let me get another piece of scrap. So that's what I've got now. That might work, but I'm gonna push it. I'm going to push it slightly lighter because we're going to layer over it. So just a little bit more water, and it makes it flow across the palette slightly more, and it's going slightly translucent. Right, now that doesn't look like a huge change, but I think that will be enough. I'm actually going to shift that slightly bluer. Right, now, there are a lot of soft edges in this picture. And there's the obvious soft edges around the fluffy feathers. But also, I don't want these edge feathers to stand out too much. So I'm going to put the paint down, and these wings are split, as you can see. So I'm going to just paint down the side of the wings and leave a little sliver in the middle to show that curve, that edge of the wing. And I'm going to get another brush ready. This is why I have to talk about watercolor a lot before we actually start, because when it happens quickly. I'm going to get another brush. This is just a damp, clean brush, and when I put the paint down, I'm going to use my other brush to smooth out the edges. Right, now, let me just move that. Can you still see that? Yes, you can. And there's going to be no detail in here. So I'm going to put the paint down. I'm going round that edge, but not all the way through. And once it's down, I'm going to take my damp brush and pull out that colour to make it nice and soft. And at this point, I'm not worrying too much about this outer edge. I want it to be quite soft. It's a little more colour. And the cerulean in this really gives a great texture to the paint. And I do want a fairly crisp edge. It should be wet enough. I can just touch up these areas. Just a little bit, it does fade out and we come down here. Right, I'm cleaning my smoothing brush. You'll need to clean your smoothing brush quite a lot. And before smoothing, it needs to be damp, but not too much water on it. And if there are some blossoms in there, I don't mind about this. It's light enough. It's got texture in the wings anyway. Now let's do the other side while we're here. And I'm going to leave just a little sliver of paper where that wing edge is. There's a little tufty bit up here, isn't there? I'll just put that in. Being careful not to touch that mid edge, although we may break it up a little bit, because I don't want it to be I want it to be visible but not too stark. I hope this is making, you have to go fast with this. I can't stop and yeah. And this is going to be the black bit, so if we've got some texture and blossoms in here, that's fine. Just going to dampen up that fluffy bit. All right. Okay, and that's, I mean, just the paint on the paper, to me, it's one of the reasons I like watercolor, is that it has this beautiful texture when it goes down. Right, okay. Let's do the other one then. Now in the picture, this one's a lot darker, but we're going to put the same colours on. Is it still damp? No, don't touch it, clamp. Right. No. Again, just this edge, so maybe a little bit more in there. And these feathers actually have some shape to them, so I'm moving quickly. This is, I should have used arches for this, because then I could have slowed down a little. My damp brush, I'm kind of dipping the brush into the paint and pulling it out. So I lose that hard edge where I don't want it and keep it where I do. And just see. I think this might be too dry for this. Yes, it is. All right, I'm just standing back a little bit. And I'm not worried about the blossoms. I'm finding the more I paint that if you get the values right, so the blossoms where I've gone in with slightly more water than I ought to have done, if the values are right, I find the blossoms actually add to the effect of the painting, or rather it gives an effect that I like. I'm trying not to get paint everywhere. And this will dry lighter, but I'm in the right ballpark with my values, so I'm not too worried about it. Just a bit more up here. I've seen a couple of, we can always sharpen up these edges later, but we can't soften them again. There we go. All right, I kind of like that. And this is just the first layer, so we're good. Just little touch-ups. I just want to get the top of his head. Level. Okay, so how's that doing? I should probably have softened that a bit more, but it's there now, so we'll have to live with it. Okay. Now we're going to take the same colour and we're now going to put in a little bit. This value is kind of probably this value down here. This is very dark, but we're still going to paint over it. We can layer that up to make it darker later. I'm going to leave pretty much the whole of his face. I always leave the face, and we're probably going to put it in. I used to leave the face right to the end, or at least the eyes right to the end, but I find there comes a point I have to put the face in order to judge how to paint the rest of it. So let's put a little bit of colour around this fluffy area. Now we're going to destroy our brushes by doing the fluffiness. I'm going to switch brushes to a slightly smaller, actually I'll use my smoothing brush, which means I'll have to bring in another smoothing brush. And my sables will start to squeak when we do this because we're going to do the fluffiness. I'm going to put it on and then I'm just going to smoosh the brush to get these really nice jaggedy edges. And this is why my sables don't last very long. And then with my smoothing brush, I'm going to smooth out some edges that I don't want. So probably under here. Maybe some here. Could have done with a bit more paint. And the same this side. And this is still very light. We will be coming back in here to put some more on. But I want to get something down there. And you can be really quite free with this. It's so light that I'm going to splash some water on there. Now this is times when you do want. So this technique takes a bit of practice. So I get some water on my brush and I hold it very loosely with my thumb and my third finger and I just tap it. And you should get some nice splooshes on there. Yeah, that's kind of looking splooshy, isn't it? Right. I don't know. I mean, maybe we should just leave it. Just do the face and leave it like that. That's kind of nice, isn't it? Right. Now, while this is, I'm tempted while this is wet to go in with something more, but let's not do that. Let's take a breather just for a little bit. Actually, are there any small areas I want to put in? I'm going to lose this feather. I don't like that feather. I think probably just a bit of fluffiness around here. Okay. Wow. Phew. And breathe out. Okay. Well, so that's our first layer. We don't need to leave this to dry, but let's let it do a bit of drying, and let's put our sort of orangey brown color on for our chest feathers. Now I know down here, let me just put this up. It's a slightly different color to up here. However, I think if we put on this color, and maybe if we do want to change that color down there afterwards, we can glaze over lightly with some blue. I think this is slightly darker, but it will change the hue. Okay. And again, we're ignoring the shadow at the moment. We're just putting down our light side, and we're ignoring the face. We'll do the face in a bit. So this color, I'm going to get my isolator out. Just checking the chat, just checking the stream. Everything looks good. Good. All right, so I mean that's almost pure burnt sienna. Although my burnt sienna, I use Da Vinci burnt sienna, and it's kind of slightly almost gritty. Trying to do too many things at once here. Well, yeah, I think that's probably it. Now I might, let's just go with that. It might be a little bright, in which case I would take the chroma down maybe a little bit with a very, very small lick of black. Possibly a bit of ultramarine, but ultramarine will shift it a little bit. But I think I'm just going to go with a burnt sienna. I almost never ever do this, but let's see how it goes. Get my photo to stick. Better put you there. Right. Okay. Now, again, I'm going to need a smoothing brush, because we're going to put down our colour, but all these edges are pretty soft, and then we've got these little spotty bits in here. So let's start around the side of it. So this is a fairly, and it's not, that's still quite light there. It's slightly darker than our wings. I'm going to put some colour down. I'm working in the light bit first because that's the bit that's going to remain. And then I'm using my smoothing brush to pull this colour basically where I want it. And I'm cleaning it pretty regularly. And again, I'm not too bothered about blossoms with this. We want some variation in this colour to show feathers. So if you get some water splashes in there, don't worry about it. I think my drawing is not as chubby, is it? And let's put some light colour. This is a lot lighter here. I mean, I could make it darker, but we're going to go in with, there are some little bits in the light. Let's put these little bits in. And then down here, I'm going to go round the feet are of similar colour, but they're slightly different. But I'm going to leave the fluffy bits in the middle. Now it's going to look weird, this, because I'm leaving these fluffy bits because we're going to go back in and do the shadows underneath the fluffy bits. But pretty much everything is soft. And what is this? Yes. Oh, oops, brush has gone for a burden. And I'm just leaning back and squinting. Yeah, so I think that value compared to the, so this is probably going to be the final thing. We're going to darken up underneath here. But I think it looks okay. And you have to kind of judge this by not looking at the face. Once the face goes in, it changes the whole look of the thing. Okay, well, I don't know that there's much more to do to that bit. I feel as though it's cheating. Oop, that's why there was no colour on that brush. Yes, good advice. Don't mix up your pigment brush and your smoothing brush, which I do all the time. Right. And remember, at this point, we haven't put any shadows in really well. I mean, I know there's value differences there, but there's not a lot of shadow in there yet. All this will be darker. All right, I'm just going to put a little bit of colour while we're here on this feather. I don't want it to jump out too much. Again, just smooth it slightly. And this part of the painting is almost, it's not impossible to go wrong, but it's hard. And any mistakes you do make, you can generally correct later. That head looks a bit weird, doesn't it? I'm going to put a bit of colour. I know this isn't in the photo. I'm going to put a bit of colour down the side. I haven't got any left. Okay, I shall remember that for later. And right at the end, we'll put a little bit of colour in that face, I think. Okay, right. Oh, well, let's sit back. How long have we been going? So I can't tell from here. 30 minutes. 30 minutes. So it's like, this is going pretty fast. This is not like last time's 3-hour epic. I don't know quite what possessed me to do that, but anyway. And I'm just sitting here letting him dry a little bit. And whilst he's drying, let's make a plan for the next piece. The next piece, we're going to have to put shadows in. And I think we'll start with the body and get the body looking believable. And then probably the wings, maybe the face at that point, but let's have a look at this body. So we want a darker colour than the light, but we don't want it quite as dark as the photo. And this is obviously a slightly different colour to that. We have got some colour down, so if we lay it over with our shadow colour, that should give us a little bit of hue shift. And I'm just looking at the chat. Rachel says, what is the paper, please? It's Fabriano Artistico, cold press, £140. I use this a lot. I'll just show you the front of it. I don't usually use blocks, but I usually buy it in sheets. And I think it's Jerry's Artorama has got a fantastic deal on with paper at the moment. You can get 14 full-size sheets for $60, which is like half the price of Arches, which is, you know, I can't turn it down at that kind of price. It's not quite, I was saying before, it's not quite as absorbent as arches, and I think arches is quite a forgiving paper to paint on, especially if you're experimenting or you're not quite sure where you're going. You have to work fairly fast on Fabriano, I find. You can work into arches a lot more. And also the texture of arches is, even though they're both cold press, actually I've got some down here, it's slightly rougher. I think it's a nice paper, I have to say. It's just, I'm not paying $8 a sheet for it. It doesn't make me, does it make me paint any better? No, I don't think it makes me paint any better. That's the question I always ask myself when I go into an art supply store. Will this make me paint any better? And 95% of the time the answer is no. It's like the saying, there are two hobbies, buying art supplies and using art supplies, and these are two different things, and don't confuse them. They're both very pleasurable, of course, but Stonehenge is nice. Yes, was it Anna you were mentioning Stonehenge? I think I tried that a while ago. I should get some of that. Yeah. I tried is it Kilimanjaro a while ago, and that was quite nice. But I was stocking up, and I got some Fabriano instead. Right, now I think you should be drying now. I'm just looking for my paper towels. I do like a clean palette, and I wouldn't recommend you buy one. I wouldn't recommend you buy one of these palettes. This is a handmade brass palette made in the UK by a guy called Craig Young. It's a little brass plaque on the front for you, and this cost more than my first car. and it weighs about the same amount too. I mean, it's a beautiful thing, but does it make me paint any better? No. But I do like it. Jackson's do a sample pack. Ah, yes. Yes, those sample packs. Yeah, but a few of the places do sample packs. They are good. They are good to get. Yeah, there is a danger of you get stuck into a certain set of materials. Well, you get used to them. I think it's a fairly good idea to use the same materials, and then every now and again try something different is good. Okay, right. Now let's try these shadows then. Now, if Paul Foxton was here, he would scream at what I'm just about to do. We're not going to paint shadows the colour they are in the photo. Because this bird is mostly white, I like slightly blue shadows on white things in watercolour. That's me. It's not correct, but I think it looks good. So I'm going to use my cerulean again, and I'm going to add in my burnt sienna, probably slightly more than we did before. So it's going to be more towards grey. Let me just check that. And again, we're going to need our smoothing brush. There's a lot of smoothing in this painting. Almost nothing is hard edged apart from the face and the feet, which is partly why I think it makes such a good subject. And the tail is quite important in this composition too. So this is my colour. It's not particularly dark, but it will add, and the consistency of the paint is slightly thicker than we had before. I might have undercooked that slightly. Let's make that slightly darker. This may ruin the whole thing. All right, and we're going to smooth the edges, so it's going to dilute it a little bit. So let's go in, and again, I'm going to put the paint down, but I'm not painting up to the edges of the shadows. It's almost, I don't know. It's almost, I put a little dollop down and then I work it out with the smoothing brush. It's like placing little, almost like, I don't know, almost a mosaic, but then you play with the mosaic tiles. Now, this left eye is almost completely in shadow, so I'm going to put just a bit, there's a little bit of white next to the eye. I'm just putting it roughly where, and that, I mean, that looks terrible, doesn't it? But now I'm going to get my smoothing brush quickly. Quickly clamp. And then smooth out those edges. Yeah, I think probably could have gone slightly blue on that colour. Again, it's light here, so I don't want to go down too far. I'm going to put some, yeah, I thought that was going to happen. Blossoms. I'm doing exactly what I tell people and myself not to do all the time, which is go back into it. Yeah, we have to be slightly more careful with this layer. And I'm just looking at the photo and seeing roughly where are the little dark pieces. There's that bit down the middle. I'm not sure I like that. And this needn't be the last word in shadows here. Oh, I know I said we're going to leave the face, but the shadows do need to go in there. I'm going to make it slightly bluer just because I like that contrast between the blue and the burnt sienna. That looks terrible, doesn't it? So it gets to this point and I'm thinking, oh dear. Oh no. Right. Now the next bit is this bit under the fluffy bits. I don't want it to be, I think I want these just to be fluffy, so I don't want too much structure in there, but we do need some shadow. I'm going to put some colour down and then really fluff up the top edge. And smoosh my brush to get those nice raggedy edges. And this is a damp brush. I'm just destroying it, the poor little thing. I know that's a hard edge there. I think I might wait right till the end before we put that hard edge in. This shadow comes over. There's a little slightly whiter bit there. I'm going to leave that tail. Now, how is that looking fluffiness wise? I've got slightly more. I'm leaning back now and I'm looking at it just to see what it needs. It's kind of dark under there, and again I'm using my bristles and the paper's wet, so it should blend as it goes down. If it doesn't blend as it goes down, just use your smoothing brush. Okay, I'm looking at it and I'm kind of getting a little scared, but I'm trusting that we've made all the right decisions. There's a little bit of shadow down there, which I don't think I'm going to put in. Oops. Sorry, my computer's trying to talk to me. Go away. Okay, Anna says, I think that looks really good. Well, thank you very much, Anna. Anna can come again. Right. Okay. Is this dry? It's just a little bit, I think it just needs a little bit more shadow. This is the shadow of the beak actually is in there. So a little bit more. This is quite, I'm getting more delicate around the face. And if that's dry, we can just layer over that. I don't think that was dry. Yeah, I'm going to leave that for now. That wasn't dry enough to do. Okay, right. And relax again. It's moments of sort of minutes of frantic painting and blending, and then you let it dry for a bit and you can breathe out. Right. Okay. That's that bit done. A little bit of head, I think. We need some colour on that head. We should have probably done that first. I'm trying to get sort of the first couple of layers in and fill in as much as we need to do the next bit. The feet will have to go in at some point, but I think they'll go in after the head. I'm desperately wanting to smooth that edge, but I'm trying to restrain myself. So again, a little bit of burnt sienna for this head, and this head, it's got a sheen to it, so it's slightly darker at the top, and then there's a little divot in there, which is also slightly darker. So I'm going to use just a stripe of colour. Yeah, probably could have been slightly different colour, but we can fix that later. And another little stripe of colour across here, and then my smoothing brush to join them together, and just a little bit of smoothing underneath. I think I could have gone a little stronger there. It's a bit more colour. It's wet enough. I'm not, when I say don't go back into an area, I can drop colour in, but going in and waggling the brush around generally doesn't help. Okay, now that looks better. Okay, I'm happy with that. Let's have a look at this face. Actually, let's just have a quick breather. It's very intense, this. What are we looking at time-wise? 1:48. So we're going for 48 minutes. It is going pretty fast, this, I have to say. And we have no background to put in, so I'm just noodling with these feathers back here, which I probably shouldn't do. But they're just standing out to me too much. Right, now I'm going to stand back and have a look, and some terrible problems will probably leap out at me. Oh, I don't know. It's not so bad. I think I could have gone fluffier with these feathers, you know. Well, we'll leave it for now. And if we need extra fluffiness around the middle, we'll put it in at the end. Okay, let's have a go at this face. Now, rather annoyingly, I've left a white. Oh no, I think I'm okay. My pencil line is okay. Face. I'm going to actually draw in the eyes first. So they're outlined in a very dark colour, and they have the pupils. And then I'm going to go in and put the shadow under the brow. I'll also probably do the beak whilst we're here. Oh, another question. Anna says, I get confused by going back in and dropping colour, or rather, all is going well, then I muck up. Yeah. I think the best solution, and when I try and follow and don't always succeed, is try and get it right first time, which I realise is completely unhelpful. The rule about dropping in colour is that your paint has to be slightly less water in it than what you're putting it into. Otherwise we'll get huge blossoms. And when I do drop in colour, it is almost just dropping it in. If I could drop it from a height, I would, just very much just dropping it in with the tip of the brush. And if you do muck up, my rule with watercolour and mucking things up is, if you muck up an area, leave it, let it dry, go and do something else. And I often find that the region that you think you've mucked up actually looks a lot better when you put other things into it. And trying and fixing things mostly doesn't work. Right, let's have a look at this face. We'll just have to put in the eyes, and it won't look particularly good because the eyes will have to dry before we put those shadows in. We could put in the shadows under the eyes first, but I think I need to put the eyes in before I know where to put the shadows. And yeah, I meant to say that this is the original one, was a lot bigger than this, and I had a lot more paper real estate to put details in, so this could be tricky. Right, I'm going to switch to this is my synthetic. I could probably do with a smaller one of these, but I don't have one handy. It's a nice synthetic Skoda Perla, great point on it. Doesn't hold that much water, which is great for detail work. Okay. That's very nice of you, Tim. It looks like so beautiful even at this stage. Good. Well, there's plenty of time to mess it up yet. But thank you. And I have to say, I offer my most successful paintings, I'm often struggling at this point and thinking it looks terrible. And then I kind of knuckle down and make it and really work to make it better. Sometimes when things go really well, I lose focus and then the whole thing falls apart. So the very best paintings kind of just paint themselves, which is very annoying. And that happens once in a blue moon. Okay, Anna says thank you very much. Thank you, Anna. Right, eyes. Now I'm going to mix up, we're not going to use black, I'm going to mix up a dark with ultramarine and burnt sienna here. And it's not quite black, but fairly close. There's no water in it. I'm just using the dampness from the sable. Oh, I said I was going to use my synthetic, didn't I? Too late. I'm using my sable now. I was going to say if my sables hold more water, so if you're using a synthetic to mix this up, you might need just to add in very, very, very just tip the brush bit of water. All right. I'm going to have a steady hand for this. Now the eyes are outlined in a very dark colour, but I'm not going to go in and just put a continuous line around there. I'm just going to put in little dashes of dark. I'm hoping it's going to keep, and leaving little gaps, because a continuous dark line doesn't read well as a continuous dark line. I'm hoping you won't look starved all too much. And then just a little bit, again, just leaving a few bits of white. And then I'm going to take a damp brush and just join those dashes together. I'm hoping that I'm going to make that pupil a little bigger. I don't want him to look too cartoonish, but he will look a bit stark before the rest. Oh, that looks terrible, doesn't it? Yeah, but it's the right thing. Okay, now the left one. The left one is almost completely in shadow. I'm still going to put in, again, I'm not putting in a continuous line. I'm leaving little gaps. We probably won't see very much of this at all when it's done. And then the pupil. And oh dear. Well, again, I'm just trusting that I've seen the right thing and it's going to work. Oof. And while we're here, let's put in a bit of this beak. Now again, this is going to look a little weird. I'm going to just adding in a bit of blue. I think the beak is slightly bluer than the. Now the beak has got this, it's lighter on the right hand side, darker on the left hand side, and there's that little highlight, so I'm going to put most of the paint on the left hand side. And again, this is pretty stiff paint, just enough so it will come off the brush. All right. using the point of the brush, doing the point of the beak first. And most of the paint is going over the left-hand side. I don't know if I put more of it over the left-hand side. And then my smoothing brush, I'm leaving a little sliver of white paint. That's too wet, that brush. And dribbles at the end. Yeah, okay, I could have done with a bit more paint on that. Hey, which brush? I've got so many brushes on the glue. Right. Bit more colour down the bottom there. And I'm just doing the beak. I know there's a load of shadow around here. And just squinting down. I'll keep that right hand side lighter. Okay, I think that'll probably need surgery later. But yeah, it kind of makes the it looked a bit bare without the beak in. Okay. I'm going to put in a little bit of colour for the insides of the eyes. They look orange, but I'm betting that's actually a fairly dark, or at least mid-value brown. Have a look on here. Yeah, it's a mid-value, yeah, almost burnt sienna-ish, but I think we want them slightly different colour. So I'm going to take my burnt sienna. I'm going to add in just I'm going to add in a bit of cat orange, just to shift that colour a little bit. And we want it to be light enough to show up against the darks, but we don't want it to leap out as a bright colour. I reckon that's about it. So yeah, that's probably just above a mid-value brown. It's very tempting to say, oh yes, the bright orange, and put some bright orange in there. And again, I'm not going to colour in all of it. I'm going to put little dabs of colour and then go in with my smoothing brush, just wetting the paper in between to join those bits together. And quite a dry brush. It just adds a bit of interest, I suppose, visual interest. And I'm using the same colour over this side. It doesn't need to, we don't need to make it darker colour because we're going to layer over our shadow colour. Okay. Now he's not looking too bad, he's looking a little weird. And it's just coming up to 2 o'clock. I'm going to go and get some fresh water and just let everything, we need to let those eyes dry. And then we'll come back and finish off the face. If you've got any questions, please, comments, just say hi, just pop it in the chat. It's nice to see people out there. Let me just clean my palette while I'm here too. And for people who are painting along, how's it? Let me know how it's going or how it's not going. I know people have, there's a couple of people who haven't painted much in watercolours before, so I'd be really quite interested to hear what their experience is, because if you're used to oil painting, I think this is a very different process. All right, okay, right, I'm just going to refresh my water and then we'll come back and finish this face. It's getting hot in here for once. Oh, some. Yeah. Mary says plus. I'm assuming that's good. I'm going to take it as a good. And Maya says, "So lovely of you to do this. Thank you." Well, thank you, Maya, for turning up. It's I'm getting the hang of it. I think I'm playing the long game with this stuff. Mary says, "Paint along going well. Fantastic." She says, "You mean I can't go over it 50 times like I do with my own paints?" Oh, sadly, no. In some ways, that's an advantage, I think, because you have to. It really forces you to think and try and get it right first time. Luckily, Watercolor goes so fast, so you don't waste 6 months if you put a stroke wrong. Anna says, "Yes, thank you so much. Very helpful indeed. That's good to hear." Plus, my bird look evil. Yeah, it probably does look evil. Well, I don't know. They are kind of evil-looking birds. And once we put the shadows in, I think it's probably going to look even more evil. I'm hoping I'm not going to ruin it. It's looking a bit weird at the moment. Oh, Mary, thank you very much. That's very kind of you. I enjoy. I like hearing the sound of my own voice. I think it's more than anything. And one of the reasons I do this is I've learned a lot by watching other people paint. And also when people paint and they talk through why they do things, and a lot of it is how they solve problems, how they plan things out, what they simplify, you know, what they leave out, when things go wrong, what do they do. And also when I talk through things when I'm painting, it helps me a lot too. For when I first started, I spent a long time just basically throwing paint at the paper and hoping it would work, and and occasionally it would, but because I was just experimenting and trying stuff out, I would have something that came out well, and I had absolutely no idea how I did it, and so I couldn't repeat it. So I found that planning and talking through things before you do them means I'm more able to reproduce stuff later on. Actually, I'm getting really hot. I'm going to go and turn the heating off. Right, let's have a look at this face. Yes, hearing your thought. Oh, thank you, Rachel. Yeah, and it is hard, and nobody. I sit down in front of a piece of paper, and I think I've no idea how I'm going to do this. It's I'm not one of these people who says, "Well, yes, but this is how you do it," and throwing out diktats from on high. In fact, I mean, if I knew how to do it all the time, it just wouldn't be interesting. Right. Okay, FaceTime. So we're going to put in some shadows for the face, and so we have the shadows for the side of the face, but under the eyes they're darker. But we have some darks down there already, so pretty much the same colour we used, but maybe slightly darker. And again, keep your smoothing brush handy, because we don't want hard edges. We want probably a slightly hard edge over the brow, but otherwise, do I want ultramarine here? I don't want cerulean. I'm going to put, no, let's go with ultramarine. You could use cerulean. I'm going to mix ultramarine and burnt sienna to make a grey, probably a bluish grey. And the paint is fairly stiff here. So if I was to put that out, we're not particularly dark. It's probably, yeah, maybe not even a mid-value there. Get my value scale out. Yeah, that's going to dry that. That's a mid-value. Right. Now, if you look at the photo, there's a little bit of, there's a slightly lighter piece just under the outside of the eye where the darkest piece is. So I'm going to try and keep that. Let's do the right hand one first. Right, got my paint. And again, I'm gonna put pieces of paint where it's darkest. And around the outside here. I'm just going to put a little, I want that shadow over the iris. Actually, I'm not going to do that because that's drying. Let's just soften those edges. Let's pull that into the eye a little bit. There's a little bit that's slightly lighter. I'm keeping the top fairly hard, but the shadow under that eye goes through the pupil. And I'm hoping that will read fairly well. It's not kind of curved there. A few little bits that just poke up slightly into the head. A small piece that comes down. And I'm just going to try and pull out just a little bit. I don't want that top edge to be perfectly rigid. Right, and this left hand eye is much more in shadow, but there's still a slight lighter bit just below the black outline. And this is where I find it really hard to talk and paint because I'm concentrating. And yeah, oh dear, I'm not sure about that. In the smoothing brush, keeping that top edge fairly. We're going to put some more shadows. There's a little bit of darkness that comes down towards the beak. Yeah, it's looking a bit, maybe a bit overly fierce, you know. And where I don't want a hard edge, softening it a little bit. And again, there are just little bits that are poking up into the head. I'm just kind of releasing the seal. Okay, and I'm leaning back and I'm squinting. Just going to add in a bit more cerulean just to modify the shadow. I think it needs just a bit more. I don't want to take the shadows too dark. Just a bit more. And then my smoothing brush to, I'm kind of pulling it where I want it now. I'm squinting like crazy just to see whether, yeah, he looks a bit, he's overdone the eyeliner, but I'm going to leave that for now because I don't want to go back in. Okay, of course, now I said that, I've seen something else I want to do. No, leave it, Clamp. Yeah, that's, so I think the iris of that eye needs to be slightly darker, but I'm not gonna do it right now because I'll destroy everything else. Right, I'm standing back. Okay, good. Now at the moment, He's looking all eyes and nothing else. So I'm looking at the thing and I'm thinking, what do we need to do now to kind of pull the thing back together again? And I think we need feet and we need a tail. So we've done this bit that's got very hard edges, and the other things with hard edges are going to be, well, darks, I suppose, are going to be the tail and the feet. So we're just going to wash over the feet. We can do the feet in 2 values, or at least most of the feet in 2 values. I don't want to make them too prominent, but I do want to have them as a counterbalance to the face. Now the colour of the feet, I mean, I think it's going to be burnt sienna with a little bit of cat orange in. Yeah, and it's kind of a mid-value. They're not particularly light, these feet. So maybe slightly lighter than a mid-value. And are we doing? Oh, David, hello from France. Hello. Hello, David. Nice to see you. Okay, feet. Right, just a quick mop up of the palette. I've drawn them out not particularly well, but they'll do. And we're going to put an even wash over all of them, then let it dry, and then go back in with a shadow colour just to bring out some form. And it's very easy to overdo the shadow on the feet, I find, and they become too prominent. So a little bit of burnt sienna. I'm going to stick a bit of, oops, maybe that's a bit too much. My cat orange is taking over. I think that's going to work. Let's go with that. I would usually, with these kinds of, well, with all paintings, I would not use pigments straight from the tube. I've very often modify them with bits of black just to take the punchiness out, but this seems to have quite a lot of straight from the tube colour. Right, let's do that. Okay, and I think just careful to put the colour. I'm just painting through the joins between. I can see where my drawing is. The joins between the talons and the feet. Just leaving bits of white paper so it's not just coloured in. Then a damp brush just to join the pigments together. It's going to go a little blossomy, but I'm okay with that. And I've actually left most of the gaps on the areas that are having the most light, so there'll be a slight value change in there, even though we're just using one colour. Yeah, I mean, that's improved it already, I think. While we're down here, let's put a bit of stick colour in. Now the stick is not the main event, so we don't need to be, it needs to have roughly the right base colour anyway. I mean, there's dark bits on here, but this is kind of it's a brown, but it's kind of a greyed out brown, and I go to burnt sienna, a little bit of ultramarine, but slightly more burnt sienna than ultramarine. And it's fairly light in here, and I'm kind of referring back to relating it to what we've painted before. So it's kind of slightly darker than our chest feathers. It's probably too dark. I'm just going to put base wash really. And if the orange blends in, that's fine. Fairly quickly, just trying to touch the paper once. I think there's actually a little bit of, I won't do that because it's going to blend into the orange where I don't want it. Let's change the shape of that a little bit. Right, and we'll do more with that. Yeah, and you can see how it's now counterbalancing the eyes, and I can't claim any kudos for that, because it's all Dave Nightingale's work. Right. And tail. Now that tail is quite dark in there. Yeah, I shouldn't have used ultramarine in those eyes. I'm just looking at it. It didn't give the right, or at least taken them slightly browner. Too late now. It's done. Right, a little bit of burnt sienna. A little bit, I'm going to use cerulean now. A little bit of cerulean, but keep it kind of brown. And the value of that, we want it to be darker than under shadows for our fluffy feathers. We can always take it a bit darker later, and that's probably, I mean, this isn't a very dark painting. This is probably about 5, yeah. So halfway up the values go. Sorry, I wanged the microphone there. Apologies if that came through. Now, I'm going to change where my tail is, I think. So my pencil line is coming up here, but I've got my fluffy feathers coming up there. All right, well, let's put in the bottom bit and see how it looks. Yeah, I'm going to take it slightly lower. Your drawing may be different. Now we have feathers in here, so we don't want a hard line. And then smooth that out with the damp brush. And then I'm using my, it's really not much water on it, I'm just destroying the edge to make it look like those feathers are poking down. And I think that kind of works, doesn't it, actually? He does look as though he's got some kind of tutu on, sadly, which wasn't really my intention. But it's what we have right now. And the other thing, there's a dark shadow in here. I'm kind of trying to do all these, at least put in an indication of these darks down here, so I can make a decision as to whether this face needs more or less. Well, if it needs less, we're stuffed. But right, again, this is cerulean and burnt sienna, fairly thick, but it's probably not a very dark value again. And my talons are probably dried. Just a little bit of dark around here and a nice choppy edge because we've got feathers. And damp brush and soften that edge out with a damp brush. How's that looking? Oh no, that's not right, is it? Oh dear, dear me. No. I think I'm just going to lose that edge into that talon. It's very easy to make feet look kind of cut out and pasted on, and that's exactly what I've done. So I'm probably going to destroy quite a bit. Actually, I'm going to stand back and have a look. Now, this is going to be one of those times where I say leave it and come back to it. I know we've got the towns to do and the shadows and all this detail on the stick, and I'm not sure about that tail though. Yeah, I'm just going to put a little bit. I just think it needs to curve up slightly, not a huge amount. There we go. Oh. Oh, and now we're in French. Lovely. Neil. Very nice. Ah, international gathering today. Well, actually, no, we've got UK. David's in the UK, and I think he's painting along too. So Anna says, "What are your views on transparent, semi, and opaque paints, please, Michelle?" Oh, well, that's a good question. I use mainly transparent ones. They're the workhorses, but not. There are some that are very, very transparent and very test staining, like things like phthalo. I don't use. I used to, but it just gets everywhere and goes into everything. So I don't use it as much as I used to. So the standard transparent paints I use mainly. I do use opaque paints, and by opaque I mean opaque watercolor, not opaque like gouache. And I do like them. So cad orange I use, and because they're slightly opaque, they have a bit more body to them, and they change the consistency of the paint, which can make it easier to work with. And another couple of paints, I've got them in here. I use Holbein's Lavender, and I think that's Naples Yellow, and they're, whoops, you can't see that, Lavender and Naples Yellow, and they're both slightly opaque, but I use Lavender to both to give lighter greys a bit more body, and so the paint doesn't flow quite as freely on paper, and it gives a nice effect, but it's not necessary. I could live quite happily without them, and they can be a bit of the cadmiums especially can be a bit of a hindrance, and it makes it easier for washes to look overworked. So I would actually advise stay away from them until you really, until you really need them and see and need the consistency. Oh, Rachel's off. Very nice to see you, Rachel. It's nice to see you. It's nice to have people along, actually. Right. Okay, where were we? Okay. Wings. Oh dear, wings. I'm worried about his little tutu now. Yeah, I think it's too symmetric. We need to gussy that up a bit, but we're not going to do that right now. Let's have a go at these wings. I don't know whether these wings are going to work. So I showed you the original one. Where is he? What did I do? I deliberately kept this to one side. Yeah, my fluffy bits are definitely asymmetric. So these wings I left fairly light and left the focus on the face and the feet, but we're going to try putting in some blackish wings anyway. So we're going to darken down these wings, but I don't think I'm going to take the dark all the way to the top. In fact, we may have finished those top wings and leave the interest here. So let's put some dark in here. Now we need to think about this because we've got these little speckled bits at the edges, and I am not going to sit here for 3 hours and paint little speckled bits, so we need a way to put those in. So if you're painting along, I think we're going to, if you have a spray bottle handy, we're going to try putting in some speckles with some spray. If you don't have a spray bottle, try some just light spatter with some water on your brush, or just ignore them and leave them out. That's also perfectly valid. But let's see how this goes. Now, they're not really black. I think they're kind of blue. So again, we're using a lot of the same mixes in here. So I'm using cerulean and a little bit of burnt sienna, and it's fairly thick. We're gonna do quite a lot of smoothing, and we're going to put in water as well. So we can afford to go. That's too brown. We can afford to go fairly dark with this, but it needs to be, the paint needs to flow, otherwise it'll just stick on the paper and just sit there. Yeah, a bit more blue. Right, now this is an experiment. Let's see how this works. All right, let's do this right hand one first. Now I'm just going to put colour pretty much near this inside edge. There's a little feather thing in there, isn't there? I'm going to paint around that. And I'm not really, I'm using the brush just to place colour. And I'm going to have my smoothing brush handy, which I'm going to get out right now. This paint is quite thick, so I want to get to it before it dries. Just pull that out, make that nice soft edge. There's this little tufty bit up here which I kind of like, and then it's not very thick up here at all. A little line of colour, smoothing brush out, and where it needs it I'm just kind of pulling the colour out to the edge, and as this is wet I'll maybe drop in a few dots. I'm kind of experimenting. I have no idea if this is going to work. Yeah, maybe not that. Actually go in little lines, don't they? And that comes down. A bit more colour down there. And while this is still wet, now you need to time this very well. Now, the paper needs to be damp, but not wet. So it's when the shine goes off the paper and it'll go kind of satiny. I think that, just do a couple of spritzes. Let's put some little dots in there. I think it's might. No, I think that was too wet. And how's that looking? I don't know. Is that okay? I don't know if I prefer it before or not. It's going to dry a bit lighter. Right, where are we going? Goodness me, I thought this would be a fast one, but it hasn't been. Let's put in this while I'm waiting for that to dry a bit. And the problem with spritzing is every time you spritz it, of course, you put on extra water. So if it's too wet, you have to wait again. All right. I'm being careful around the top of his head, around these feathers. We're going to have to put more colour on these feathers. Okay, let's come around here. And there's enough water in this paint that it will stay wet whilst I get the smoothing brush out. And soften that left edge. Right, I'm hoping that's, let's try again. That's right, my head's probably getting in the way. I don't know, it's not a bad effect. It's not a bad effect. I mean, it's not what's in the picture, but hey, it's our painting, we can do what we want. It's just maybe a couple more details on this. Just a little bit of dark up there. Oops. All right, I'm going to stand back and see what that looks like. It's looking okay to me, but apart from that brown feather thing sticking up. Yeah, and I think the tops of those wings, I'm going to leave them. Now, technically, this is in shadow and so should be darker, but I might just leave that. This is annoyingly got a line in there, but I think I'm going to live with it. Okay. I'm desperate. I'm trying to get these spots in these wings. Let's try again. Okay, I give up. It's kind of spotty. I mean, it's not what's in the photo, but it's kind of spotty. Just a little bit more colour here, because there is. Right. Okay, I think we're on to. Anna says, I can't ever see the setting. What paper are you using, Anna? I think, did you tell me, was it Stonehenge? Was it Anna using Stonehenge? Oh, thank you, David. My pleasure. Immense talent. Oh, yes. Oh, David can come again, definitely. I wouldn't say immense talent. Right. Right, it's just, yeah, okay. Well, I think the wings are okay. Let's leave those wings like that. And let's finish him up. I think we're very close. It's really just adjusting some of the values. I think we need slight darkness over here and just make this fluffiness slightly asymmetric. A little bit of detail on the stick and the talons, and a little bit of gussying around the face, but we have to be careful there because it could ruin the whole thing. Okay, let's put a little bit of dry brush work on this. I'm going to reuse what we've got here on the branch. It won't need very much. So I've got paint, and then I take a paper towel and just dab off the excess, and this should be enough. I can show you on this. If I'm holding the brush parallel to the paper, it's too much. I just pull it across, it just grabs the tooth and leaves nice raggedy marks. But it does need to be really quite dry. And it isn't. I'm barely touching the paper here. Barely touching the paper. And you need very little to make it read like branch. And it's not the main. That's actually still wet down there. Let me see. Oh, and I seem to have, I've got gesso all over me. Oh, I know how that happened. All right, and up underneath the talons, a little bit of shadow. This is on the stick, this isn't on the talons right now. And these are quite crisp shadows. Okay, I'm going to need more than that. My usual ultramarine and burnt sienna. just to put a few shadows on here. I'm kind of making these up and hoping they'll read well. So that one there. It's going to be dark in there. I'm trying not to overdo this. I find it needs very little. Just a little bit of browning this up, just a little bit of burnt sienna. That might be too dark. The shadows on the talons are surprisingly, there's a surprisingly small value change. And I think I might have messed that up some more. It's still just two values. A little bit over here. And if it needs softening, soften that top edge. I'm getting too literal with bird feet. Never works. And similarly with the talons, I generally just put in the tip and the top pieces, just really to indicate that they're there. And they're not very dark. I know they're very dark in the photo, but if you make them as dark in the photo as they are here, and we're not going down in value as much as the photo is. How's that looking? This one's a bit weird, isn't it? But it's going to have to stay like it now. Just dibby-dabbing. I'm just looking at it and thinking, where are those small pieces of darks? Might just give it a bit of interest. Let's try a bit more of this dry brush. This really isn't working on this paper. Just dabbing it works. That's better. You'd think I'd be used to doing this, but probably not. Okay, I'm starting to mutter to myself as well. Okay, another comment. You use the graduated wash for the greys? Graduated brush? No, not really. No. So I place down. I mix up a grey and I place it down, and then I take a clean damp brush, and so I place the paint and the clean damp brush to basically pull the colour out and to fade it out. I try and avoid graduated washes if I can. Anna says yes, and arches. I'm satin blind. I think you. Yeah, it's or just impatient. I don't know. I haven't done splatter on arches for a while. Actually, it is very absorbent. I might try that actually and see how that goes. Oh, thank you, David. That's very kind of you. Hats off. Thank you very much. It's going to go to my head, you know. My ego's big enough as it is. Right. Okay, stop fiddling with these talons. Okay, I just noodled those. Right. What's left to do? I think we're very close. What are we? Gosh, we're almost 2 hours. I really didn't think we were going to be going so long. Right, now this face needs a bit of work. Let's do this. I think it needs a little more darkness in these shadows. And I said I was going to let's try putting in this shadow, this crisp shadow there. This may ruin the whole thing. Right, so again, this is cerulean and burnt sienna. with slightly more cerulean. I'm going to keep that blue. No, it's kind of okay. No, let's. I think that is actually brown in there. Let's try that. If it looks terrible, well, it's going to look terrible. So it's going to be crisp across here, and then it comes down a little bit and across. A little bit of fluffiness. Right, so there's that edge. I'm going to soften that edge up here. Out here. Gosh, that brush is far too wet. It's going to blossom like crazy. I'm going to add in more cerulean because I want it to be more blue in the white feathers. Push that up. Right, I think, it's because my paper towel's absolutely sodden. I'm not actually taking off any water anymore. And then, what's that? There. And now I'm going to pull these fluffy bits really quite up here. Go bananas with them. So a little bit of and I'm going to go soften that bit a little. Now part of me is looking at what it should be and part of me is looking at what actually looks good. I'm just going to do a bit of splatter. This can get a bit gimmicky. I don't want to do too much of it. Okay. Oh dear, no. Pick it up. Right, that's enough of that, I think. She says doing more every time, every time. Oh, that's plenty. Oh, I'll just do this. Right. Actually, stop it looking like a tutu. It's probably just a little bit of. I know I said I'd leave that feather out over there, but I'm just putting in a little bit of colour to just indicate a couple of things. Right, we're very close now. I think we're very close. And a little bit of colour on this feather because it's I think it's just too prominent. So that's just a wash of whatever it is I've got left on my palette, slightly brownish. And that's just to take the value down a little bit. Do this one too. And the very final thing, I don't think that shadow really works, but it's there now, so we're gonna have to live with it. Face. Just a little few more shadows, probably around the nose. It's slightly darker in there. And again, the shadows go on. I'm just using what I've got left. Just to change the value in around the beak. I suppose I should call it a beak, it's not really a nose, is it? A little more. This is a very dangerous part of the painting because you could ruin the whole thing. Just going to darken that down a little bit. Oh, I think I ruined it. I almost want to put this eye. Completely in shadow. I'm going to leave that, and that head just slightly darker. Slightly darker on this side, and slightly darker around this nose area. And again, just pulling through the middle. Just to soften the back bit and the front bit. I'll make that beak darker on the shadow side anyway. And a final thing I'm going to do, and I leave this to the end, is a very, 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 very subtle wash. Probably just cerulean. It's almost painting water colour. Just to put very slight definition in the face. It's almost, you won't be able to see this. I have to leave this to the very end because I can't judge what it should look like until everything else is in. And that little white patch just needs to go down in value slightly. Okay, we're done. I think I'm done. Phew. Oh, thank you, Nicole, for coming. Thank you. Anna. Yeah, so Anna says, I like your bird better than the real bird as an aesthetic image. I love how you've taken what it is and made it more somehow. Well, thank you for that. But you know what? It was such a fabulous image to start with. It's and I think it lends itself to watercolor because there's so many soft edges, and it started me on the path to painting a lot of fat, fluffy birds with lots of lost edges, which I enjoy very much. Okay, guys. Well, thank you for coming. I really do appreciate it. It's nice to have people along, and if you've painted along or you are going to paint along, I'd love to see what you do. And I will send out. I've actually started a Facebook group, so I can post in the links to the live streams, etc. But I'd love to see people's paintings as well. I think I will probably do another one of these. I'm trying to think what I'm going to do. Oh, let me switch off Canvas Cam. Put me cam back on. Phew. There's me cam. So yeah, I will. At the top of the chat, there's a link to a Facebook group where people can post their paintings, and I'll send out an email with all the links. I'll probably do another one of these free ones sometime in December. And I'm thinking about what to do next and where I want to go with this. And I'm still working through this at the moment. I mean, as much as I love doing these demo paintings and people painting along, and I love going to other people's as well, I would like to start something where we... So this is what I would like. I would like a group of people who really want to improve their watercolor, not just by painting paintings, but through going through a kind of more of a structured exercise set. Now, I know to most people that sounds like the most dull thing on the planet, but I keep thinking about what is it that we do that makes us progress with painting. And I get so frustrated when I'm doing a painting that just never comes together, and I feel like I'm banging my head against a brick wall. So I would like to, I'm going to take December to think about, you know, what kinds of things we could do. And ideally I'd like to, you know, have a group of us doing it, because my experience with Paul Foxton's group is that having a really good group of people helps so much. Keeping your motivation high, and you get to see other people's work, and it's if you get the right community, I find it, yeah, really enjoyable and productive. Okay, let's look at the. Marsha says thanks so much. Thank you, Marsha. Nice to see you. Structure. Maya wants structured exercises. You know, Maya, it might just be you and me. But, and you know, I've been looking. Oh gosh, I spent a couple of hours going through YouTube looking for watercolor exercises, and it was the most demoralizing experience because it's the same old stuff, and I've done that stuff and it doesn't work. So this is going to be exploratory for me, but I really want to see if we can come up with something that really pushes us forward, because I want to improve. I think we all want to improve, and I'm kind of I can't see anything else out there for watercolor that gives me what I want. So if we want it, I think we're going to have to develop it ourselves. David says watercolor is most, yes, yeah, that is sad, David. So David said it's not yet recognized as a major medium like oil on canvas, for example. It is a sad thing. It is a sad thing, yes. Yes, and I think it's getting better. When I first started with watercolor, it was deeply unfashionable, which was kind of lets the pressure off you, but it really does deserve to be seen as more than it is. You're right. Oh, one thing I do want to do, actually, I'm going to show you this. So I went back through my back catalogue, and what I want to do is do some live streams or videos where I take a real stinker of a painting I've done in the past and I repaint it, hopefully, fingers crossed, identifying what's wrong with it and repainting it in a much better way. And I found this is the one I'm going to do first. I mean, this is and I was actually quite pleased with this when I first started. So this is what I'm going to start with. And I think I could probably do a better stab at that. But I mean, I was this is like in my first year of painting or something. I think I can probably do a better job than that. So yeah, I'd like to do a few of those. So I've got a whole folder full of bad paintings that I'm going to repaint. Oh gosh, I hope I can make them better. I mean, it's going to be demoralizing if I can't. And Maya says they don't have to be free. Yeah, it depends how much work I think they take. In development mode, I think if we get a group of people together who try them out and stress test them. Anna says yes, great, fantastic. Well, I think let's just try it. What's the worst that can happen? I mean, I really can't see that there are any downsides. Okay, guys. Well, it's lovely to see you, but it's been 2 hours. And it's been fun. It's always a bit stressful. Susan says, hi Michelle, I would very much like to join your group. Yes, no, let's do this. Okay, so drop me a line and actually join the Facebook group, and we'll do it. We'll start talking in there. And as I said, I'm going to spend December just noodling through exercises, things that people have tried. Do they work? Probably not. What do we, what can we do to get something together? Okay, right. I'm gonna switch off now. Go and decompress somewhere. Oh yes, one other thing. If you want to get notified for the live streams, if you join the Facebook group, they'll be posted in there. But if you subscribe to my newsletter, I know everybody says this, but I mean, that's where I'm going to post them in the future. And there's a link at the top of the chat for that. And any live streams will always be on the on the website, on the online classes page. So okay, it's lovely to see everyone. Tim says, I love the time I spent. I'm looking for more. Thank you. Yes, I hope to see you again. And really, I mean, it's one of the things I enjoy almost more than anything is painting with other people, even though we're, you know, very, very far apart. Oh, Anna says, I have some lovely muddy puddles to show you. Oh, David, wait, you don't have to do that. There may be something in the future. There may be something in the future. I'm kind of testing. People are my guinea pigs at the moment because I didn't know whether this was going to work, but I think it's worked. Oh, I can't get on the Facebook group. Is the link okay? Probably not. Let me have a look at that. I only set it up this morning, so let me check that out and I'll email people after we've all switched off. Okay, guys. Well, if you're Thanksgiving-ing, have a happy Thanksgiving. If you're not, have a happy non-Thanksgiving. And I hope to see you in the Facebook group or at the next live stream. Okay. I will de-stream if I can work out how to do this, how I do this. Bye, Mary.